Imagine this. You wake up, right? And instead of your alarm, it's the deafening roar of chainsaws right outside your bedroom window. You look out, and to your absolute horror, a crew is tearing down that massive, healthy, decades-old tree right in front of your house. You sprint outside demanding answers, and they calmly show you a completely official work order. It has your exact street name on it, but something is terribly, terribly wrong. Welcome to a special report from the Human Error News Network. I'm your host, and today we're investigating a terrifying reality, how the invisible lines governing our cities are laying devastating traps.
Okay, let's dive right into this bizarre reality. We're looking at a tale of two trees here. On one hand, you have a diseased tree on Priory Road in the London borough of Ealing. Now that one was actually scheduled for removal. Makes sense. But on the other hand, there was a perfectly healthy, absolutely beloved cherry tree on Priory Road in the London borough of Richmond. Here's the kicker. These highly paid municipal contractors hit the exact right street name, and they even got the exact right house numbers 23 and 25. But they were in an entirely different London borough, literally a 10-minute drive across the river. They cut down the healthy cherry tree by absolute mistake.
You know that sinking, gut-wrenching feeling of powerless frustration when you're dealing with bureaucracy? Yeah, local resident Allison Murphy experienced exactly that. She said, "I wish I'd realized that they were in the wrong borough and the wrong road, cutting down the wrong tree. It was a matter of minutes." She actually challenged the workers. They just held up a mobile phone showing an Ealing Council letter, and before anyone could even process the geographic blunder, the tree was just gone. It speaks directly to that fear we all have, doesn't it? Bureaucratic blunders that happen way too fast to stop. Look, if you want to learn how to spot these errors before it's too late, hit subscribe to our network right now. We're in this together.
Now, we all live in this tangled web of city bureaucracy, and honestly, we falsely assume that the people in charge know exactly where the lines are drawn. We assume the system is infallible. Spoiler alert, it totally isn't. The contractors called this a quote-unquote human error. But wait, how does a professional crew cross a major municipal boundary without even realizing it? Well, it happens because our cities are built on these invisible, overlapping, and historically confusing administrative boundaries. To try and prevent this kind of chaos, modern councils attempt to manage natural resources through incredibly dense policy frameworks. Take Richmond's tree policy, for example. There are strict guidelines for enforcement, complex planning laws, the valuation of amenity trees, rules regarding private property, the whole shebang. But here's the crazy part. Despite this rigorous legal framework, if the underlying mapping system is misunderstood by the actual person holding the chainsaw, the policy is completely useless. The map itself is the trap. To understand how we actually fix this, I evaluated the historical efficiency of metropolitan governance and municipal boundaries. As a researcher diving deep into the archives, I traced this administrative chaos all the way back to 1911. Sir Lawrence Gome, a really prominent public servant back then, analyzed the map of London and found a system so chaotic it practically guaranteed the kind of human errors we're seeing today. You see, London had grown from a small city into this massive, complex administrative metropolis, and the mapping simply had not kept up with the explosive reality of the streets.
Back in 1911, London's administration wasn't just one map. No, it was a dozen overlapping ones. It was like a giant puzzle where absolutely none of the pieces fit. The Central Criminal Court had its own limits. The Metropolitan Police, they operated on a 15-mile radius from Charing Cross. The Water Board had entirely different territories based on old private company supplies. And the Post Office, they just created their own distinct map purely for the convenience of delivering mail. So the police, the water guys, and the postmen all operated on completely different jurisdictional boundaries. Gome actually noted that these conflicting jurisdictions made it almost impossible for everyday residents to even understand the administration.
So the absolutely crucial point here is that this historical chaos laid the foundation for today's blunders. Over the decades, we moved from that navigational chaos of 1911 through various amalgamations to the 1988 Local Government Act, which finally defined modern boundaries. Fast forward to today, and mapping isn't just about finding a street anymore. It's about administrative urban resource planning. In 2019, councils like Camden declared climate emergencies, making literally every single tree an essential asset. And yet the ghost of 1911's overlapping maps still haunts modern contractors who are relying on partial work orders.
But wait, it gets worse. Let's shift gears for a second, because that incident in Richmond, it wasn't an isolated event. It is a massive systemic vulnerability. Let's look at another modern infrastructure failure, the Camden catastrophe. In this case, Camden Council's very own tree contractor managed to fell the wrong tree, not just in the wrong borough, but right under the council's nose during a major redevelopment project. How does that even happen?
Let's map out exactly how an error like this goes down. Step 1. Camden Council grants planning permission to a developer, approving the removal of specific trees. Okay, standard stuff. Step 2. The council's tree section provides the contractor with the exact details and a map. Step 3. The contractor arrives on site, gets totally confused by the street corners, and essentially crosses an invisible boundary of instruction. And finally, Step 4. A perfectly healthy tree is mistakenly chopped down, while the ones actually scheduled for removal are left standing there. Camden Council claimed they provided the correct map, but somehow the contractor still got it totally wrong.
Let's look at the victims of this error. We have a flourishing, semi-mature field maple on Howland Street and an ornamental pear tree over on Whitfield Street. Now, the developer had permission to remove the pear tree on Whitfield Street, but instead, the contractor showed up and mistakenly cut down that beautiful field maple across the road on Howland Street. And to add insult to injury, they later went back and cut down the correct trees too. It is a complete environmental disaster for a neighborhood that already suffers from a serious lack of street canopy. I want you to notice this specific figure, £3,804.59. That isn't just a random number. That is the exact capital asset value for amenity trees, or CAVIT, of that single mistakenly felled field maple in Camden. It was officially evaluated as being in good physiological condition, storing nearly 69 kilograms of carbon and removing over 120 grams of pollution every single year. When human error strikes our urban infrastructure, we aren't just losing a pretty view, guys. We are destroying highly valuable, heavily measurable capital assets that our cities desperately need. To combat this, modern councils are trying to implement strict strategies, and we must work together to protect these assets. For instance, councils enforce strict word-by-word pruning cycles. They flat-out refuse to remove trees just so someone can build a vehicular drop curb for their new driveway. They are constantly playing this balancing game, public safety on one hand, private property interests on the other, and, crucially, they use that CAVIT valuation system to seek financial compensation when third parties damage council trees. So the framework is there, but the human execution? That's exactly where the system completely breaks down.
Now contrast those painful blunders with this beautiful reality. When administrative divisions actually successfully coordinate infrastructure decisions, properly managed urban resources flourish. You get beautiful tree lines that provide cooling canopies and clean air for everyone. This is the ultimate goal of urban resource planning. It works beautifully when the map matches the territory and the contractor actually verifies the location correctly before turning on the chainsaw.
If you're finding this special report valuable, do me a huge favor and subscribe to our network right now. We'd love for you to join our community of error trackers right here at the Human Error News Network. We are absolutely dedicated to detecting, preventing, and correcting these systemic flaws. But honestly, we need you with us to help hold these systems accountable.
So how do you empower yourself? Here is your personal roadmap to detect, correct, and prevent the next human error on your street. First, if a contractor shows up, verify the exact borough on their documentation. Don't just glance at the street name, look closely at the council letterhead. Second, demand to see explicit geographical maps, not just a text list on some guy's cracked phone screen. Third, be hyper-aware of overlapping street names in neighboring boroughs. There are multiple Priory roads. Finally, understand your own local council's boundaries. Know exactly where your private property ends and the adopted highway begins. You are literally the last line of defense.
Which brings us to the ultimate question. I want you to look outside your window right now. Where do the invisible lines of jurisdiction cross on your street? Are you sitting in a blind spot right now between two councils, two water boards, or two entirely different postal codes? And when those trucks pull up and the paperwork is inevitably flawed, are you prepared for the next human error?